Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I will be presenting to you today on deposit insurance and how you are protected. And I'm going to start off with a little jingle that I believe you are familiar with. And if not, I'm sure by the end of the day today, you'll be familiar with this jingle. Here it goes. I'm not sure if you heard it, but there was supposed to have been a jingle. All right. The presentation format is basically, I will be presenting to you on telling you about what is deposit insurance, why is deposit insurance important, how does it work, who pays for deposit insurance. We were asked this question at the last presentation we did. And we're going to be talking about the scope of coverage and how you are covered. And then we'll have some final pointers for you before we go. All right, JDIC. JDIC is a statutory body governed by the Deposit Insurance Act of 1998, which established the JDIC, which is the Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation. And we were established to protect deposits and to contribute to the stability and confidence in Jamaica's financial system back in 1998. Persons often ask this question, what is deposit insurance? Deposit insurance is a system that protects deposits in the event your regulated financial institution becomes non-viable and is unable to return your deposits. Thank you. Other functions of the JDIC is that we collaborate with other members of the financial system safety net, and we manage a deposit insurance fund. Now, I just mentioned the financial system safety net, and we have 4 bodies that comprise this group, the safety net. We have the Bank of Jamaica, we have the JDIC, we have the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Public Service, and we have the Financial Services Commission. I'll just give a brief statement on each entity, except for JDIC, of course, as the other bodies, the Bank of Jamaica and the FSC, they are ably represented by persons here, will also be presenting later. The Bank of Jamaica main function is to formulate and implement monetary policy and to ensure price stability. The Ministry of Finance responsibility is for developing the government fiscal policy framework and to manage and to allocate the resources of the government. The Financial Services Commission supervises and regulates the non-deposit taking sector, which include the insurance companies, which is both life and general, the securities dealers and fund managers. And of course, Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation, whose main mandate is to protect the deposit. That's what we do each day. All right. Why is deposit insurance important? Deposit insurance is important as it protects small depositors who are less likely to assess the risk that their financial institution may possess. And that's the reason why the JDIC is here, because we look out for the small depositors who may not necessarily be in a position to assess their financial institutions. Deposit insurance. This was also a question that we were asked at the last presentation. Who pays for deposit insurance? The financial institutions that are part of the financial system, in that they are regulated deposit-taking institution and they are regulated by the Bank of Jamaica. I'll go into a little detail a little bit in terms of the institutions that fall in this group. So the financial institutions that collect deposits or take deposits, at the end of each December, they are required to provide us with information on their total deposit base. And this is how we calculate their premium, which they pay to us, which is due on the 1st of April of the following year. And this premium goes into a fund, which is Deposit Insurance Fund, which is managed by JDIC. The member institution, who are these? We presently have 11 members who are part of the deposit insurance scheme. We have 2 building societies, mainly VMBS, Scotia Jamaica Building Society. We have 1 merchant bank, which is MF&G. We have 8 commercial banks: Citibank, NCB, JN Bank, Sagicor, BNS, FGB, JMMB, and also First Caribbean. I'll briefly make one statement on credit unions, in that credit unions are also deposit-taking institutions, but they are not yet, they are self-regulating. They are a self-regulating body presently, and also now legislation are being drafted to bring them under the regulatory ambit of the Bank of Jamaica. Once that is done, then they'll be required to apply to the JDIC for deposit insurance. I won't say anything more on the credit union sector because there'll be a representative later down in the program who will be presenting on that sector. How are you protected? You're protected by a coverage limit, which is the maximum coverage limit, presently 600,000. And you're protected in terms of the deposit type, depending on the type of accounts that you have at the institution, the ownership category, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and the currency. Is it that only J dollars, if you're saving J dollars, that will cover? We'll find out in a little bit. All right. The type of accounts that we cover include savings and checking account, shares in a building society, prepaid drafts and letters of credit for business persons, certificate of deposit, and so on, time deposits. Now, you're covered based on your institution in that the coverage limit, 600,000, you're covered per institution based on the ownership category. I'll also go into some more details in a little bit. And I mentioned earlier whether foreign currency is covered. Yes, if you save in a foreign currency account, you're also covered. So J dollars are covered, and if you save in a foreign currency account at your deposit-taking institution, which is one of the 11 institutions I just mentioned, yes, you are covered. And I want you to look at this graph because based on the present coverage limit and based on the number of persons who have a deposit account at any of the 11 institutions, 95% of these accounts are covered by the coverage limit of 600,000. 95%. Now that is significant. And I also want to point out that the 95% is consistent with the international standard, the International Association of Deposit Insurers, which recommend that a deposit insurer should cover at least 90 to 95% of the deposit accounts in the financial system. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, your deposit is covered when you save with one of the regulated institutions, in that 95% of all the deposit accounts are covered up to the 600,000. Now, ownership categories. JDIC will pay depositors up to the maximum coverage limit, which is 600,000 per account holder per institution. Now, what does this mean? What it means is that your deposit is covered separately based on the ownership category. What is the ownership category? Or what do we mean by that? Ownership category meaning you can have an account individual by yourself. John Brown is an individual and he'll have an account by himself. He could also have an account jointly with his wife, Mary. That's a joint account, or it could be two siblings having a joint account. You have a nominee account where somebody is nominated to hold an account for someone else. You have trust accounts where persons hold, or it could be an entity, hold funds for the benefit of others. We have business accounts, sole traders, partnership, limited liability companies, and not-for-profit companies. All these ownership categories are covered up to the $600,000 per institution. Now, how is deposit insurance calculated? I'm going to give you two quick examples of how that is done. I mentioned John Brown before. John Brown banks with no such bank, and he has an account in his own right, John Brown, that is the individual category. He has, in fact, two accounts, a checking account and he has a savings account. In the checking account, he has $100,000. In the savings account, he has $700,000, for a grand total of $800,000. But remember, we said that we'll pay out up to the maximum coverage limit per category, ownership category. So meaning in the event of failure and the resolution option is by way of a payout, then John Brown will end up with $600,000 in his own right. If he shares an account with his wife, Mary, at the same no such bank, and he has a savings account with $900,000, then in the event of failure, the JDIC, or non-viability, in JDIC will pay out $600,000 to John and Mary, which is another ownership category, the joint ownership category. So here's the example. John will get a check or to be transferred to an institution of his choice, $600,000 to John Brown, and John Brown and Mary Brown, the other $600,000, based on the fact that there was an account with $900,000, the savings account with John and Mary, and in his individual category, he had two accounts, a checking account with $100 and a savings account with $700,000. So therefore, remember the coverage limit is $600,000. JDIC will pay out $600,000 to John Brown and $600,000 to John and Mary per ownership category. Guys, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we're almost there. Final pointers I want to reinforce for you. Knowledge is power. You need to protect yourself, protect your future by saving with a regulated financial institution. But before I go, there is something that I want to remind you of that you'd have seen many times on television. I'm hoping that this jingle will play. I guess not. But what it is, you'd have remember an add-on. Well, here it goes. I'm not sure if you heard it, but basically what we're saying, it summarizes the presentation. You're running to him. All right, so that summarized our presentation in that it reminds you of the institution that were covered under the deposit insurance scheme. It reminded you of the coverage limit of $600,000. So ladies and gentlemen, there's no need to worry. You are protected in that JDIC have you covered. I want to thank you for listening. And at the appropriate time, I'll take any questions that you might have. Thank you again. Continue to enjoy the rest of the day.